That was South Carolina Congressman Joe Wilson's infamous interruption of President Obama's speech to Congress back in 2009. And last night, Senator Rand Paul channeled that moment on Twitter, writing, "I just yelled you lie really loud. Good thing I'm not there. And the Republican presidential candidate is here."
What were you watching? Were you watching old reruns of The Apprentice, or what were you watching?
We thought it was funny. It was a joke, you know, because obviously I wouldn't say that in public because I thought it was incredibly rude. But the thing is that we responded when people asked, what were you watching? We said, well, that was when he said the speech was going to be shorter.
I'm okay now.
Twitter is known for being a little snarky and for having a little sense of humor.
I got to get that.
So let me ask you, Senator, about obviously you're not happy about being cut out of the debate, and the most, I think, most people have said, the most accurate poll in all of Iowa says that you're in 5th place by yourself.
Des Moines Register came out this morning. We're in 5th by ourselves in front of 3 people that they're going to put in the debate.
Okay, but isn't that part of their own? I think that's part of their own guidelines. You should therefore be in the debate.
Yeah, this one is within their guidelines, within their framework, and we're telling them today they should be counting it. So just your poll last week, NBC had the same thing, had us in 5th place in Iowa.
So why aren't they? If again, it's the most reliable poll in Iowa that it has been for years, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Everybody knows it has been for years. Why are you being kept out?
You know, I think it's unclear, but I think that the polling shows that we should be. You know, it shows that we are clearly ahead of several of the candidates.
But the other thing is trying to elbow you out?
You know, I think my concern is, and here's the question, I have a unique voice. I'm the one voice saying we shouldn't make the sand glow. I'm the one voice saying we shouldn't be collecting all the government, shouldn't be collecting all your records. And I'm the one voice saying we shouldn't lock up every kid for marijuana. And so do they not want that unique voice in the party? Many of our supporters, they fluctuate whether they're going to stay in the Republican Party or vote for a Libertarian candidate. The Libertarian candidate holds the margin of difference a lot of times in races. Do they really not want the Liberty voters in their party?
So I was critical of your reaction, and then Joe actually brought up a point and then a story about himself, of course.
I would never do that.
He didn't do a debate and actually made something of it. So I wonder if now, especially with looking at these numbers, if there's more noise you can, more of an impact you can make not taking part in the debate.
Kind of like while the debate's going on.
Well, we will. And the other thing is we will be letting them know today that they should be counting the Des Moines Register poll and seeing if they want to reassess or maybe if there has been an error in the calculations. See, this new poll was not included, but it does fall within the deadline. And the bottom line is I don't think anybody in the media should decide or have an artificial designation on who can and who cannot win. And that's what it does. 3 weeks out, if you want to tell voters, oh, you're not in the first chair, what do you think kind of message that sends to your voters?
Totally agree.
So we refuse to accept their designation.
Who is more responsible for this decision? Is it the network, or is it the Republican Party, or is it both?
I think it's the Republican Party. They've been saying for months they're going to narrow the field, but I don't think it's the job of the establishment in the Republican Party to decide who is and who isn't. We have 1,000 precinct chairs in Iowa. We have a bigger and stronger organization, arguably, than any candidate in Iowa. So I don't think it's fair for them to arbitrarily come in and say, oh, well, we've decided that because you're 0.2 behind somebody in some arbitrary polls with an arbitrary setting that we're not going to include you.
I don't like it.
So, no, I think it's the party. The Republican Party they say they want a big party, they want a big tent. Well, it's not a very big tent if you push out all the Liberty voters.
You know, the Republican establishment is kind of having a bad cycle and not doing too well. Does it still exist? Is there a single voice or a comprehensive idea for the Republican Party at this point, given what we've seen in this campaign?
I think there's always been sort of an inside Washington party and an outside Washington party, and there's always been a disconnect between the grassroots and the establishment. In fact, I think the establishment, probably in both parties, lingers a decade behind the voters. For example, even on the Democrat side, when you see the enthusiasm for Bernie Sanders, people really do. Hillary Clinton's yesterday's news, and they are worried about the corruption and the dishonesty in the emails. They are, even in the Democrat Party. That's why they're flocking to Bernie Sanders. Now, I don't think they're quite sure that socialism is the answer for the country, but I do think there's a lot of discontent on both sides.
But how do you bridge some of these seemingly unbridgeable divisions? For example, there are a lot of people in the party who agree with you on foreign policy, who believe that we should be more modest and cautious in our interventions, that we can't do nation building everywhere, et cetera, et cetera. That's not the policy of the establishment party. And again, you know, there's this other wing of the party that no, let's go in and let's.
And that's why the debates have been incredibly important. In the last debate, we actually had, I think, the best discussion of foreign policy in our countries in the last decade over regime change. At least, is it a good idea or a bad idea? Are we safer or less safe by toppling Gaddafi, by toppling Assad? And this is important because really on both sides of the aisle, Hillary Clinton has wanted a no-fly zone, but so has Rubio and Bush and all these others. And my question has been, well, if you're going to have a no-fly zone in an area where Russia already flies, are you willing to shoot down Russian planes? And apparently Christie is.
Do you?
But that worries me. That worries me.
We have noticed for some time, and we've talked about, I've talked about it very clearly on the show, that it seems that Rubio gets a disproportionate amount of press, positive press, fawning press, not only from the mainstream media, but also from the Republican establishment. Do you think that is in large part because of the last issue that you brought up, the fact that he is a neocon, the way George W. Bush was a neocon? He is a neocon, the way Richard Pearl was a neocon, the way Dick Cheney was a neocon. Do you think that has something to do with that fact?
The interesting thing is, Cato looked at this the other day.
First of all, do you agree with me that he is a supercharged neocon?
Yes, but the interesting thing is, Cato looked at all the candidates, Republican and Democrat, and said, who's most likely to take us back to war in the Middle East? And actually, it's Hillary Clinton, with Rubio being a close second, looking at all of their statements, how bellicose their statements are, what do they want to do, who do they want to arm, and what is their propensity to be involved. Actually, Hillary Clinton's the most likely to take us back to war in the Middle East. And I think that's the disconnect in the Democrat Party, is many are like, my goodness, we're not the party that should be wanting to be involved everywhere all the time. And I think that's where Bernie Sanders is coming around.
All right, Senator Rand Paul, thank you very much.